No. That was Doug Wilson. That's a common misconception. Doug Wilson kills anything that's not a white anything that's not a white Hufflepuff.
Isn't that the truth?
We'll totally edit this out. Welcome to Tales from the Ditch, sponsored by Jerry Falwell. How do you say it? Falwell?
Falwell?
Liberty University.
Is it Falwell or Falwell?
Falwell.
But who cares? I'm just the host. Whatever. Liberty likes guns. Bring your gun to school day. Also sponsored by facing your giants while they're proofed from fire. I don't know, something. Oh, yeah. Monumental. Sponsored by Monumental. Which is endorsed by T-Mac, apparently. So, Tales from the Ditch, I have a story. We were at the Canada border.
Oh, dear.
Coming back with our band, and I just want to get home.
Hold on, wait. I don't think you can start the story there.
Why not?
To give it context, I think you have to mention what happened in Modesto.
Okay. So, we're in Modesto. And I come out.
We're on a tour in a band.
The greatest band you've never heard of, which didn't fall apart at all. And we have a guest, Ryan Smith.
Yeah. Welcome, Ryan.
Hi. Hi, you've heard me.
Multiple doctorates from Western Seminary. Has studied abroad as well with N.T. Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Is what some people would say about others. Not
yes.
Ryan.
Yeah.
All right. So we're in Modesto. We're on tour. And I, of course, think it's a good idea to come out to the van with no shirt on.
Oh, you're still starting it too late, I think.
Why? I'm going to give context.
Okay. I'll let you go. Sorry.
You ruined this for authors.
Sorry, I'm being controlling.
Idolatry. So, the night before, our bassist thought it was funny to write a bunch of stuff on me with a marker. One of them was Cop Killer. I forgot about this. We were all staying in one hotel room, Sean, is that right?
Yeah, at a show, we wrote Cop Killer on your chest, across your chest.
Mm-hmm. Should I go back further? Or?
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. Sorry.
So I go out and I go to a van and I'm circled by police. And in my 150-pound frame, I was like, this isn't going to end well. And they start asking me weird questions about whose van it was, if we had been in certain areas I'd never heard of in Modesto. And I was like, dude, I don't cause trouble. I'm just here to get my shirt. He goes, Cop Killer, huh? I was like, So they cuffed me. Did they cuff me?
Yeah, you were on the ground and you were
cuffed. They cuff me, and later the rest of my band comes out, and I have no clue what's going on. And they start lecturing us and asking questions. I think they were asking our drummer about, were you in this area, blah, blah, blah. And our drummer somehow becomes a lawyer suddenly and goes, oh, really? What's the crime? Mm-hmm. Who called you? What's it about? And they say, oh, well, there was a drug thing in the area, or there was a rape in there. They changed the crime like 3 times. And Sean comes out, and then the bassist, I think the bassist was last.
Yeah, I remember I was like, where is Seth with that
and
ramen?
I'm still in cuffs while everyone's arguing. I'm all, excuse me, like I'm on the ground. And I think
with no shirt on pavement.
They never gave an explanation except someone told us this van was attached to some crime somewhere in the city. I'm all, who called? They're all, well, enough to see here. We're going to leave.
We asked the short, chubby officer, and he said, oh, we're searching it for drugs. Because meanwhile, while we're all on the ground, they're like destroying the van, ripping up the seats, pulling all the carpet out, just destroying this van. And I'm like, what are they looking for? And the short, chubby cop said they're looking for drugs. And then we asked the other cop, and he said, oh, we're afraid that there is a rape committed in this vehicle, and we need some forensic evidence. And then we asked the other cop, and he said, I just showed up to watch you guys. And we were like, okay, this is really strange and uncomfortable. And I remember you were, like, the rest of us got to sit with our hands behind our back on the curb.
I was still cuffed.
But
they did
you
not
were
like
on
the
your
Cop
stomach.
Killer thing. That's my clue as Sherlock. I thought maybe they don't like Cop Killer written on my chest.
Yeah, and I remember it was funny. It was like one by one, you were gone, And so I went out. I was like, where's Seth? And then I was gone. And I remember there was 3 crime units with like the canine. There was like 5 or 6 squad cars. And there was just like a whole mess of people. Even a guy with one of the big guns, whatever they have, M16 or something. Dude. Some gun that looked like that. And I was like, what is this about? And it was about us.
It was about us. I like to think a lot of things are about us. Yeah. So we had that happen.
And then it turned out, I'm sorry, I got to fill in the gaps. It turned out, I'm calling you out, Modesto Police Department. It turned out the guy who was kind of running this investigation, they said eventually, oh, we'll let you go. We didn't find anything. It's all good. No worries. And just left all our stuff in a pile there, and all of them took off. All the cops took off, and we were just there with a pile of stuff that used to be the tour van, and it smelled. And we see the guy who was running the thing shake hands with the security guard from the Econo Lodge across the street that we got kicked out of the night before.
Yeah. I feel like...
That's corruption.
And don't worry, no one was showing up to our show, so it was off to a great start.
Yes.
I didn't snap on anyone within 24 hours of that tour whatsoever.
Oh, dear.
So that was that, but, all right, to get to a story.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we're in Canada.
That wasn't the story?
No.
Oh, my word.
Sean is just a Mary Sue. We come back, all right, and this is one of my most endearing memories of Sean. We come back to a border, and we got stopped because the van we were touring with had some symbols and stickers on their van. I want to get this right. So, anarchy, I think one was American flag burning, and this is on theirs. At the time, I was a registered Republican. That's the funny thing. So,
and this was the border from Canada into the
And this
US.
is around 9/11.
Yep. It was right after 9/11.
So, they have something about Bush on the car, like also. So we get stopped, and we get out, and I'm like, I'm gonna get targeted first. I know I will. And Sean decided that he had something to contribute to the conversation with the Canadian Border Patrol. And what was it you started talking to him about, Sean? Was it theology, or was it ruining everything? What was it that happened?
I can't actually remember what I said.
You said something about, well, if we are terrorists, who cares? Or well, if we do hate the government, why is that your business? Or, yeah, maybe we did break the law. So what? You can't prove anything. And you're just going off, and I'm looking like, why are you doing this? So how long were we there, Sean? Stopped at the Canadian border.
I don't know, at least 12 hours.
So
in a holding cell.
When they let us go to America, what was the consequence job-wise, Sean? What were you flagged for?
I think we all received an FBI red flag that described us as social terrorists.
So...
Which is funny because...
I knew you would...
First of all...
Okay.
I know you say that it was me, but Tom was the one who started pushing...
Who had the Holy
Border
Spirit,
Patrol
Sean?
agent.
Who had the Holy Spirit?
Tom was the one who was freaking out first, and he said... Because they were like, we got to search your van. And we'd already been through the van search thing, and we didn't want to do it again. And Tom says, no. I'm saying no. His lawyer came out. He goes, you can't do this. You're going to plant cocaine. I need to be here while you search it. All kinds of stuff like that.
They're like, whoa, man, it's not a boot dial. They're being polite. We're like, shut up.
Yeah. And that's when I jumped in because they started getting lippy with Tom. And then I had to defend Tom. And then I think the physical...
I have never seen so many caribou with armored plates and hockey pucks with razors on them.
It was a boot terrifying.
I'm so sick of being a persecuted American Christian by liberals. I can't even say.
Yeah, so I couldn't get a job for the federal government for a long time. Local government was no problem.
The good news is, once I was removed from that list, I got on Gang Profile. So that helped a lot with my future.
Yeah, where do you work?
Now?
Yeah.
I don't see how that's hurting me, Sean.
Aren't you a pastor?
Yeah.
Oh, they don't do background checks, apparently.
They show
Actually,
grace.
it's true. They don't do background checks. Not the church. I'm talking about where we currently work. because I couldn't get a job for TSA, but I could get a job for where I currently work because they're like, oh, social terrorism. You don't have that much influence.
Well, here's the interesting thing for me was, and I think this is the police being creative. I'm going to say that and be nice. I got caught for brass knuckles at an event where I planned to use them. I'm not going to talk about the other details. They wrote down silencer. Or
really?
Silencers. Because one of the slang terms is, oh, it's a silencer. Now, do you think employers said, well, let's hear this guy's story, like maybe Shane. They just see silencer and they go, why would you have a silencer by a bar? Like,
yeah, that's pretty good.
so it all turned out okay. And Sean's a good friend, and he let me stay with him and live with him. And yeah, it was all right. Right, Sean?
It was great.
It's a good
My life has not been affected.
You have
at all
stories where I'm terrible too, okay?
Yeah, no. I admit that I made that situation escalate to a point where it didn't need to be. We probably would have been out of there in an hour instead of a day. But it was fun. We got to enjoy Canada.
We saw the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
We saw... and good news, that was not the last time I got handcuffed. I learned my lesson.
You know, the crazy thing was, too, here's an interesting thing to think about. We still didn't even need an ID.
No.
Do you remember? At no point were they like, let's see your IDs. They were just like, we want to search your van.
The kissing was kind of weird, though. They said we had to kiss him before we left. And I was like, I don't know why, but...
You're a peaceful people.
Alex Jones would eat this up. He's like, those caribou were meant to turn
we
you
need
into
to call
Muslims.
him up. We need to tell him what's going on.
Tales from the Ditch episode. What episode is this? 8?
8. Episode 8.
I want to start off with a question.
Okay.
And this is for both you and not me because I have no problems. So, everyone, and I want to ask Ryan first. Everyone has a lean or an experience or a bias. And sometimes we put those on the table. People say, okay, I have a more Presbyterian lean or I'm Presbyterian, they'll have a view. What would you say is your guys' okay, if you had any bias or lean, like, oh, I happen to lean this way, and it can be politically, theologically, anything. I know my bias. What's kind of your lean? Like if you said, here's the echo chamber, and you can sometimes hear things from outside the echo chamber. You go, oh, this is interesting. But what's kind of your lean or bias, Ryan? If you said, I leaned one way or another, or maybe you have a bias, like specific authors, specific, type of denomination, what's kind of your lean?
I don't know. I think the interesting thing though is, excuse me, that I think everybody has that. So you know what I mean? Like I think everybody has like a lean or a bias, and I think or a tribe or like a specific perspective that they hold on, whether that's politics or whether that's theology or even like parenting. Like now there's all these different people that have like, oh, we're
a baby
wise.
Family,
yeah, exactly. And then none of that stuff's bad. I think what becomes destructive is when you don't acknowledge that that's kind of, you know what I mean? Like your MO, your way of operating. And so I don't know. I think for me, I don't know, man. I think the primary ones that I've been coming to terms with is that I think a lot of that's just coming to things with the Reformed perspective on stuff. That's been, I think, a predominant big one where I think sometimes like, for me, I think a large part of the Reformed perspective on theology and the scriptures and even how that kind of plays out in practice of the church, I think all of that carries a lot of really good implications. I think the hard thing with the bias or the lean that you have is that is the lens through which you see something. And so it's kind of hard to name that as your lean because it's your conviction. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be a biases, it wouldn't be a lean if you didn't have a reason for holding it. So I don't know.
Can you define that when you say the Reformed tradition or Reformed area of politics or theology? Can you define
So
that?
specifically for theology, I think when you think through Reformed, I think let's like go back to the original Reformers and more of like true Protestant.
Like Zwingli.
Bottoms up!
Not like Zwingli. Yeah, Zwingli's included in that. But I would say Luther, Calvin, everybody that we celebrated, mainly Luther apparently for the 500th anniversary. But I think largely there's the Protestant stuff, the justification by faith alone, the authority of Scripture being something that the church is entrusted with and given rather than it's the authority of the church, and that uses the Bible as it sees fit or whatever. So I think a lot of that Reformed stuff deals with that, and then even as you go into like either if you're dealing with Presbyterian or Baptist, a large part of that is regularly covenant theology and that kind of hermeneutic, that way of reading the Bible. So I think a lot of those things are kind of summarized in justification by faith alone. As you follow down the kind of Reformed train, you get into the covenant stuff versus more dispensational, and then even there, that's where you even get into then the work of God and salvation, and the more Calvinist or Reformed understanding of the doctrines of grace and stuff like that. So I think those kind of things are commonly the lens through which, whenever I come to a text or something that might be a little more murky on some of those things, I tend to naturally gravitate to, how does this fit into the Reformed perspective, rather than thinking, well, my Reformed perspective must be wrong because this is what this says. That's kind of the way that I've talked about it with some other people about kind of the Reformed faith and the confessions and the creeds, is that kind of being my anchor in the midst of a kind of messy, like the Bible's just kind of, there's a lot of tension that it holds between all that kind of stuff. What do you want? You want to draw?
I want the sketchbook.
Yeah, Seth needs a draw. It's kind of how he works out his thoughts.
So does that answer your question?
Definitely.
I think there's kind of like it's more of a...
What was your question, Seth?
More of a historical framework than like a specific thing.
I want you to answer now.
I'm, in a way, on the other side of that spectrum. I'm a reformer, I would say, by heart, which means that tradition has nothing to say for my current context of life. So even if Reformation is a tradition now, I don't want to hear it. And I think that's probably because I just don't... I just have a problem with authority. And so I'm probably like, if there's somewhere between a libertarian and an anarchist, I'm somewhere there. And I think that, unfortunately, like, that's a lean or a bias of mine, because the instant somebody says anything about traditional stuff, I'm not interested. And so a lot of the Reformation... a lot of the modern current Reformation is about the importance of the history of the church and the orthodox that's happened. The second you say orthodox or historically, it turns me off instantly. And
what do you think about always reforming that?
Yeah, see, and I feel like I agree with that. I just feel like nobody else gets it. Because... Well,
your definition of reforming is different than what most Reformed guys would argue what we mean when we say always reforming.
Right. So my definition would be that Scripture is the ultimate authority on the direction that my life takes, as opposed to the history of the church.
Yeah.
And so, which is why I think also, because of this lean, I think it's why I want to interpret the Bible so literally, because it makes it an easy framework for me to determine what is and isn't correct about a tradition, compared to just trusting the tradition.
Yeah.
Because, like Magneto, I have trusted in the tradition, and it's only brought death.
Plot twist. Was the gospel anti-imperial?
How do we get to this?
Absolutely. Yes. I say yes.
Anti-imperial.
What's the answer?
Tell us so define what you mean by anti-imperial. By anti-empire.
Is the gospel primarily about obtaining and getting power and structure, or is it the opposite of laying down rights? And Jesus was the opposite. He wasn't seeking power and consolidating this strength on earth. It was the exact opposite of, no, I lay down my rights. I love my enemies. I don't care about just winning wars. Because imperial, you almost think of spreading the empire, garnering power, consolidating power, getting politicians in office who might have unsavory characteristics, different things like that.
Establishing Christianity in another country that hasn't asked for it.
I don't know. Your words, not mine. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just supplementing your definition.
Well, I think not simply establishing Christianity, but establishing our specific take on Christianity.
Christianity, quote, democracy, quote.
Now, Ryan, you are an avid Trump supporter. Why do you think he's the main guy who's going to bring us into this perfect time? Because Sean argues with me. I'm like, he's the guy. I mean, look at him. By the way, that was
Beside
sarcasm
myself.
for those of you
Beside
who...
myself.
I could hear it.
Side note, do you know how I get pumped before sermon? Sing the song to DuckTales, and it just calms
That's a
me
good
down.
way to do it. I love that Seth tries to provoke me so often, and I'm like not quick enough to come up with. I just kind of sit silently and just kind of let the claim just kind of fall.
Like, am I a Trump supporter?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not,
Seth has this
but
accusatory tone.
What's it
makes
called?
You
I'm a
believe it.
sociopath?
Yes.
That's the term.
what the doctor said.
You don't murder anybody. You just make them murder themselves through guile.
I
and
got
wit.
layers. Like an onion.
I am curious why you're curious about our biases.
Because I have none. No, because I read something by Anthony Bradley that I thought was interesting. He said, I can't help that I'm from a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I have my background. He goes, but what I can do is lay them on the table and not give in to tribalism. He goes, so I can say, hey, I'm Presbyterian.
Yeah.
I clearly have been taught this. I favor this. But I'm putting on the table of, hey, this might be a blind spot versus, well, and you were hinting at this a little bit, Ryan, of, no, it's not just my perspective. This is the perspective. Because what's the passive-aggressive way they do is they go, well, Ryan, I hold the biblical view.
Yeah,
and you go,
yeah.
okay, so if I don't agree with you, and it's a passive-aggressive way. And because I can't strike them, I have to go, I have to debate them like a theologian instead of a barbarian striking them down.
I think.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say,
Ryan.
I think-
No,
you're the
you
guest.
go ahead.
So this is the hard.
Guys.
That's to me is the hard thing with like. So for Sean, like your perspective, I think so much what's helpful for me is when we go because everybody can say there's Trump supporters that believe that he is divinely ordained by God, and they can say
Right.
this is the biblical perspective,
Right.
and that becomes like I guess the book is shut now because rather I think that's where I go. Okay, well let's historically. Like how have the texts that you're looking at been interpreted? Like
Right.
let's look at the consistency of Scripture within itself. One, but then two, like has anybody in church history held to the perspective that you're holding, and it's gone well for them long term?
Right.
Like that's where I think the history of that's an example of how I think. Because I'm with you. Like I totally understand. Like I think sometimes we can overemphasize on just following a historical pattern
Right.
rather than like really entering into the Scriptures for ourselves and kind of finding our way in our own context and culture. I just think what I found is that by clinging to an anchor of like a historical perspective, that does so much of the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to go, I'm Reformed, and then when I come across something within the Reformed tradition that I disagree with, I can go, man, I hold this with a little bit of disagreement, but this is still my tribe because there's so much benefit that comes out of gleaning from this history. Like these guys it's a tried and true for 500 years now plus, going back to Augustine, that of a way to interpret the Scriptures that saves me from feeling like every time I open the Bible I'm starting from square one.
Right.
Or Pastor Shay. This is a conversation Shay would love to get into it with us. And we
Maybe
brought
we'll
up
give
the
him a
war
chance.
on Christmas.
And-
Shay's
and
like,
hip-hop.
you guys are terrible. Well, how about we talk about Christmas? He goes, that is not what I want to talk about.
I like it when guests don't know what they're going to talk about. Though.
I know.
It's good. I have to say that working that out, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I sometimes wish that I had that foundation, I guess, to work from, and that it would be easier for me. And I think, honestly, I'm not saying it's a good thing that I have this bias, but I'm just saying that I do, and sometimes it affects my life. An example is,
Baptism.
recently, we've been doing something in our church called a catechism. And the second that word was announced, I just thought of...
You just threw up in your mouth a little bit?
A little bit. I was just like, oh, so, what's next? What's that? It starts with catechism. And then it becomes infant baptism.
Infant baptism.
Infinite baptism.
As many baptisms as
That's
you want.
my point of view.
Wait, but that is
That's
American
the Armenian
evangelicalism,
view.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had infinite baptism.
Yeah, I have had
The last one didn't take. Let's go in again and see if the water works this time.
Hey, parents, I've been baptized 3 times. And
But
one was
what
in
I-
a Calvinist church.
What I have to do to lay it on the table, like you're saying Bradley suggested, which I think is a good way, is I say that out loud, which a lot of people think I'm disruptive and loud and annoying because I'm trying to lay out my biases and just say, I don't like the Catholic Church, so I don't want to do catechism. And they say, okay, Sean, we heard you. We're still going to do it. And I go, okay, as long as you've heard me. And I still even participate and I get into it and everything.
Have you studied
I just want everybody
you
to
should
know.
study the history of catechisms more. Because this is why, this is
That's
really
what
fun
everyone
where it's
says.
reformed. We beat the Catholic Church to the catechisms by 50 or 60 years. The Catholic Church started doing catechisms in response to Luther's smaller catechism and Calvin's catechism.
Really?
Yeah. We had them by 50 years. That's why the Reformation was going so quickly, because of these. We were actually answering questions that people had.
Right.
Like, you know, that what is who is God, and what is faith, and like all these kind of questions. And so children were coming to faith faster. People were able to get like good theology and then be able to defend it well. And so like they were like, this is nothing like what the Catholic Church has been able to ever give us, the Roman Catholic Church. And so the 50, 60 years go by, and they assigned, I forget the guy's name, the Roman Catholic Church gave this one guy and said, we need a catechism.
Right.
Because the Calvin and Luther, these guys, they're spanking us, and we've got to figure out what we're going to do.
Right.
And
so catechism is actually reformed then.
It's to have a catechism, that's a reformed tradition.
From
So
what I understand,
that's why I love it.
Catechism just means children's teaching,
or
small teaching, or easy teaching.
I have to look
something
it
like
up.
that.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
So why not just call it that? Why do we have to call it catechism? It's a stupid word.
No, because this is
We're
one
English.
thing I know, but we're
Anglo.
This is one thing that I appreciate, though, is like, because we use words like liturgy, but we also use words like sacraments, like, you know, I think there is a sense where,
but because there's no English equivalent, though.
but also like catechism is one word that sets it apart from just teaching for children or just teaching within the concept of question and answer. That's a simple way. It's a one word, and there's a sense of like specialness to the catechism. You know
I don't
what I mean?
like it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
I just think like I think everything that we're doing in the catechism is great, but the fact that we insist on calling it catechism makes me feel like there's a little bit more to it. And the history that's the thing, is my whole perspective will undermine history completely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, can I even believe that we beat it by 50 years? Because like, you know, the history is written by the victor, or whatever that saying is. Like Winston Churchill.
But you can see publishing dates of when
said-
the catechisms were made, though.
Yeah, but like we've changed history in the last decade. You know what I mean? I mean, history is whatever the public agrees to decide it. Anyways, my point is not that I'm correct. My point is that that's my lean.
Yeah,
that's where
I'll say it, like, and the way that you said is like I like the fact that we're doing all this stuff. I just don't like us having a name to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, the thought that came to mind was the kind of person that's like, why do we have to get married? Like, why do I have to put a ring on it? Like, we live together, we're sleeping together. Like, I love you. Why do we have to put a name on it?
We're
It's
married
like,
in God's eyes.
Because there's something like, and this is obviously, that's like a taking it to a what do you think of a covenant of marriage? But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, we're doing the same thing. Why does it need a special name? Because there's something to be said for like that. This is a special thing that we're doing and teaching ourselves.
I want to ask Sean something, because I want to push back a little on this, because we challenge each other on this show. We want to thank our sponsors, Powerade. When you want to judge people, you don't want to be thirsty, you need electrolytes.
Is Gatorade what people that judge drink?
I thought Gatorade was Arminius. Is it not?
Yeah, Gatorade is full Arminius.
Yeah.
Okay. Sean, are you okay with stealing holidays from the Catholic Church or celebrations that are cool? Like, they celebrate Jesus ascending. I'd like to celebrate that, because they don't just celebrate Easter, they celebrate Jesus ascending. Would you be cool with that if we did it in a cool way, or would you immediately push back from the source?
No, stealing things, I'm fully behind. I think that,
So you have a problem with us beating them to the catechism. If we stole the catechism, you'd be okay with that.
Absolutely. If catechism was renowned as something we stole from them and made better, I would be so down with it. But the fact that I feel like we're copying off them to get catechism, I don't like it. Well, but here's the caveat, though. It has to be better. If we steal a holiday and make it a less fun holiday, then that's not okay with me.
But if we do it better.
But if we do it better, absolutely.
But that's like one thing that a lot of...
That's the first thing I ever learned about you, Sean. Only one person's going to get that joke.
But that's something like okay. Presbyterians, like there's a lot of different like tribes within the Reformed camp and outside of the Reformed camp that hold to like a legitimate church calendar where they kind of go through Eastertide and normal and Ascension and all that kind of stuff.
I think like Passover is great. I've done a couple Passover dinners.
Well, that's Jewish. That wouldn't be necessarily...
right. But I mean, it's like same thing. It's like a tradition that is somehow important, scripturally speaking. but not to me necessarily because Christ has come and fulfilled all that.
He's the
However,
fulfillment of the Passover Seder.
Yeah, so doing Passover Seder, knowing that Christ has come to fulfill it, and celebrating and all of those things, I feel like is a better Passover than like the ones that I saw at my Jewish friend's house, where it's like super boring and like nobody can yell and kids can't play and stuff like that. Yeah. Like when I've done it, the couple of times that people have invited me to do their Passover, it was like super fun. You involve the whole family and like the whole time you're looking at like, this has been fulfilled. And we're looking like they go next year in Jerusalem is like what you say during the Passover. Yeah. And we go next year in New Jerusalem. Yeah. And I think that's like fun and it makes it funner and kids get to like go search the house for hidden bread and things like that. Like, that's a fun...
It just gets moldy when the kids
I always
get bored, and then you find moldy bread for the next 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, like, if you make it fun, I think it's good. Yeah. Stealing holidays just because you want it to be part of your tribe, I think is lame.
I think I burnt my tongue because that tobacco smoked super hot. Yeah. And I can't feel it. Question. Who here, because we're all dads... You know, I don't mean to isolate people, but here we go. Who here caught their baby? Like, because there's a thing. Some dads have that old fashioned view of like, okay, I don't need to be in there. I actually like caught my son, cut the umbilical cord. Who caught their baby?
Sean, did you catch Danger?
I did not.
You didn't.
Danger was a C-section. Yeah. So
that's Emma. Emma was a C-section. Even. So Aaron was 39 hours in labor. And then we had to do a C-section. And so I didn't, I know. So I didn't catch because simply like that, I would have just passed out, like see like my wife cut open like that. But I like met Emma over at the table, like, and was able to kind of see her. Like, and then because of because the drugs and all that kind of stuff, Aaron was kind of out of it. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of cool. Me and Emma went back to the room and I kind of had like a few minutes to hold Emma and kind of play with her while Aaron was coming out.
That's cool.
And it was like one of those moments that was like really cool, just to kind of me and Emma for a little bit before Aaron came back and I got to see her for the first time. It's kind of weird having Aaron have all that time with like Emma, like, you know, literally inside of her for 9 months. Right. And then to have like half an hour where it was just kind of, it felt like 2 minutes, but just me and Emma together for a minute, like getting to know one another before Aaron came out and was able to like hold her and
Did you sleep that first night after she was born, or did nurses come in every 5 minutes?
Oh, your nurses came in at 5 minutes?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking a question.
I think ours was
I don't hate medical
minutes.
Practitioners, right?
Yeah, we constantly had nurses coming in. It was a revolving door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't even matter because I was like, I need to make sure this baby doesn't stop breathing.
As if you could do something about it if they did.
I was like ready. I was like, I was Googling how to do baby.
I'm going to punch this baby in the sternum if it stops breathing.
The thing is, like, that's crazy is like you hear about SIDS, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's terrifying.
Like,
I had that once.
It's so scary thinking about the possibility of your child just like no longer living. And so I was like, and that lasted 6 months. Yeah. Because I think they say after 6 months or 8 months.
Yeah. Once they kind of roll around a little bit. Yeah.
So the whole time I was like, I'm not sleeping. Yeah, and I would like pass out every now and then. My wife though, because I think God equipped her to do this, like literally didn't sleep the first 6 months. It was crazy.
I seriously, all right. So Maverick was born and I was terrified beforehand. I was like, am I going to be a good dad? I realized we've taken these classes. I still don't feel prepared. He comes out and it was almost like traumatic. I was like, holy, like, cause a human exists now who I've never met before and he just lives with me. I'm like, oh, you live with us now.
Yeah.
And I cut the umbilical cord. We wrap him up and Jess is trying to sleep. I'm sitting there just staring cause there's a light like right above his little crib. And I'm just like, I don't even know you, but you live with us now. Yeah. And that was the safest I ever drove home from the hospital. Mm-hmm. Anyone who cut me off, I was like, if you cause any harm to this baby, I will end your life. And I remember I was nervous if he was breathing. I was nervous, am I affirming him enough? And then my wife, and you know, she had major health issues afterwards, almost died. And I remember just the crazy idea. I'm like, we just brought life into the world and her life might end.
Yeah.
And it was nuts because all this over this little, like, he's this tiny little guy. He has no clue what's going on. So Jess was, having the pre-stuff where, like, for 24 hours she's, going through it. But she pushed for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
I don't say that a lot because most people don't let that happen. Riker was 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Done. Totally different. And here's the funny thing. Maverick came out crying, screaming. Riker actually came out doing what I did, which was moaning. I didn't cry when I was born. I went, ugh. And Riker did that and then went to sleep. He moaned for a few minutes and then was like, I'm done. I don't know why you even brought me here.
That's just like you.
But it was crazy though, because you say a lot of things, you look and go like, all right, when I became a Christian, I was like, life will never be the same now that I believe this. And when I got married, I even was like, oh my gosh, like I'm married. But this was another one of those moments where I held him and went, this is different. I will remember this. He came, like, I've thought about this and prayed about it, but now I'm holding him. I'm like, this is a life. We actually created a life. It was crazy. And I knew without a doubt that when Trump got elected, he'd make it all right.
That's right.
You had the foresight to know that Trump was going to be elected.
I just was like, by the way, because I'm going to get the email soon, I respect authority and God's put them in place. I also believe in humor, and I'm not getting paid for this, so I don't care.
And you can respectfully call out positions of power.
Dissent,
we see that throughout Scripture.
Have you guys read
Dissent?
Obama's Bible, the Obama commentary? Gosh, most
Obamantary?
relational president ever. I'm glad no one disagreed with him on anything.
Yeah. I feel like, actually, there was some type of commentary that Obama had.
Was it?
No, there was a book of prayer that like his pastor put together. Like these are all the prayers that he would email.
Did he face the east when he thought about them?
No. But I just love how I don't even entertain Seth. No, the book that came out though it's
You're so hot.
I'm so warm.
So President,
take your shirt off, bro.
Why are you so hot?
Get comfy.
I don't know.
You
Ryan.
can open a door actually and let some of the smoke out
Nonsense.
if you want.
I don't know what to do with this.
Sorry. I was listening to you,
Answer
Ryan.
the questions, Ryan. This is a basic.
I can't answer them because you're stripping down.
Just a shirt.
I was just gonna say.
Why are your nipples so hard if it's so hot in here? Lord have mercy.
Come on our podcast, Ryan. It's totally normal.
Yeah, most of this gets edited out. Obama, he was referring to something. I can't remember what. Oh yeah, no. You know what?
Why are you so hot?
I think Obama at one point he said,
It's like comfy warm.
if it's too hot in the studio, open the door. No, he said, I know what it was now. He said, in reference to scripture, he said, God helps those who help themselves, or something along those lines.
Did he?
I thought I heard that, and
I'd be interested. Most of the time when I hear, so one thing that President Obama actually did that 2 Corinthians Trump hasn't done is I feel like anytime he made reference to scripture or like would point to that, either it was him or just him listening to his advisors. Like he normally handled stuff really well, so that I'd be interested to see.
I thought that happened, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. In any case,
I will say, I will go on record, President Trump wished everybody happy holidays. President Obama said Merry Christmas.
Really?
So, yeah, there's a tweet.
Wait, really?
There's 2 tweets. So if you go back and look at it, so Obama was like all about, Trump was all up in arms about, it's okay to say Merry Christmas again.
Oh, yeah.
And then on Christmas Day, he actually tweeted Happy Holidays to everybody.
No
and then
way.
they looked back like a year previous, and the years previous, the President Obama has always said Merry Christmas.
Really?
It's just like this silly, like the stupidity of
my
wanting
gosh.
Christmas. And
What are you going to do about that, Trump? Checkmate.
checkmate.
I plead the fifth.
We decided it was best to remove this tale from the ditch, as it could cause some serious legal problems for many people. A 30-minute tale has been omitted. We hope that we can tell it again in the future. Email talesfromtheditch@gmail.com if you can provide us with some legal clarification.
Oh, are we not going to edit all that out?
No,
I don't
we're
want
only-
Sean to go to jail. I don't want
We might have to
Danger to
edit
grow
that
up
out.
without a dad.
Let's
Dude,
go a little
it's like
more.
that'd be like county, right? Is that county jail?
That sounds like FBI
That's a
level.
federal-
Yeah, that's a federal
I think
offense.
it's a federal crime.
You
Yeah,
Well,
we'll edit that.
wait,
Maybe
out.
is that a
maybe
felony?
I should say I know something.
Is
I
that
don't, I don't know.
so you committed 2 felonies.
Please
so I'm only
edit
8
this
ahead
out.
of you.
Dear
Yeah.
God, please.
And Ryan was okay with it the whole
no,
time.
let the record stand.
Fun fact about Sean, he walked into a crime scene for me and took my personal belongings after I fled from the police.
Guys, I'm like having a hard time sitting here listening to this because now that means that I'm a corroborator in this.
Statute of limitations.
Dude,
You're fine.
he did this.
I
That
think-
was like
Is it
11 years
statute
ago.
or statue of limitations?
A
Oh no, we've been
statue
talking
of
about the
Seinfeld?
statute
Anyone?
of limitations. It's in Albuquerque. You haven't seen
Have you
it?
ever seen that? It's a whole Seinfeld bit.
Yes.
It's statute of
Statute.
limitations.
He walked in, and did you have a gun on you? So anyway, he got my ID and everything after I fled from the police with a machete. But don't
Dear
worry,
Lord.
he didn't get permission. He just crossed the crime scene and left, which I appreciate. That's why I was like, you know what? That's my road dog. He's down.
That's right.
Ryan,
Ride
are
or
you
die.
leaving? Are you offended?
So I'm out.
I can't sit by and idly listen to this.
I'm gonna
I'm
go
go for a walk and cry.
Okay. So, yeah.
All right, you could do the podcast ending thing.
So send all emails to Sean at talesfromtheditch@gmail.com. He is the one who doesn't vote. I actually care about freedom. And I say that in the most pandering way possible so that I don't get complaints when I preach my next sermon.
All right. And we'll see you in the next part.
Okay.
I'm going to save this real quick. Do you actually know any lawyers so we can find out?